Okay, let's think about this. Imagine a world where Neanderthals never vanished. Just picture it. We, Homo sapiens, are here doing our thing, and right alongside us, maybe just down the valley or across the mountains, are the Neanderthals. It wouldn't be like a sci-fi movie where they appear out of nowhere. No, they'd have always been there. This isn't just a small change. It flips everything on its head. Everything we think about humanity, about our place in the world, it all changes. First off, let's get rid of some old ideas about Neanderthals. The caveman stereotype, the grunting, club wielding brute. That's mostly wrong. They were smart, they made tools, they cared for their sick and buried their dead. They had culture in their own way. They probably had language too, maybe not exactly like ours, but they could communicate. They were adapted for a colder, harsher world, strong, stocky, big brain, sometimes even bigger than ours. So imagine these powerful, intelligent people not disappearing. The very first encounters, way back when our ancestors first walked into Europe and Asia, would be the foundation of everything that came after. We know our ancestors met them, we know they even interbred a little. Most people of European or Asian descent have a tiny bit of Neanderthal DNA in them. It's like a whisper from the past, proof they were here. But what if those whispers turn into a full blown conversation, a shared history? Initially, it would be about resources, hunting grounds, caves, good places to gather food. Both groups would be hunter gatherers. Neanderthals were probably better at close quarters hunting, stronger, more robust for tackling large prey. We, Homo sapiens, might have been better at throwing spears from a distance or organizing larger, more complex hunts. We might have had broader diets too. So you'd have competition, maybe some fights. But also trade, maybe sharing knowledge. Hey, how do you make that kind of scraper? Oh, you know a great berry patch. It wouldn't just be war, it would be a messy human mix of everything. And this interbreeding, that little bit of DNA, it would be much, much more common. You wouldn't just have a trace. You'd have people who are clearly a mix, maybe half and half or three quarters, one quarter the other. The lines between us and them would be blurrier for some individuals, even if the groups remain largely distinct. Think about it. Families with both Neanderthal and Homo sapiens parents, what would they be called? How would they fit in? Would they be a bridge between cultures or outcasts from both? Fast forward a few thousand years, the big one, the agricultural revolution. This is where Homo sapiens really took off. We started farming, we settled down. Villages became towns, towns became cities. Our populations exploded. This was a game changer. What about Neanderthals? This is a huge question. Would they adopt farming? Their bodies were built for a physically demanding hunter-gatherer life. They needed a lot of calories. Farming is hard work, but it's a different kind of hard. It requires a different kind of planning, a long-term commitment to a plot of land. Maybe some would, maybe some groups of Neanderthals would see the benefits of a more stable food supply and try their hand at agriculture. But it's likely many wouldn't. They might stick to their nomadic ways, hunting and gathering in the wilder lands. So, you'd have two very different ways of life emerging side by side. Homo sapiens, clustered in their growing settlements, and Neanderthals ranging through the forests and mountains, perhaps feeling the squeeze as our lands expanded. This divergence would create the first major social and political divisions. We'd be building walls, developing complex social hierarchies, armies, priests, kings. They might still be in smaller, more egalitarian groups, intimately connected to the land. We would start to see them as wild, uncivilized, maybe even primitive. They might see us as soft, crowded, disconnected from nature. Prejudices would deepen. It's human nature, sadly. Imagine the first great empires rising. Egypt, Sumer, Rome, these would be Homo sapiens empires. What would their relationship be with the Neanderthals? Would they conquer them? Enslave them? Try to civilize them? Or would there be independent Neanderthal nations, perhaps in parts of the world less suited to intensive farming, like the cold plains of Eastern Europe or the rugged mountains of Central Asia? Perhaps they'd become legendary fierce warriors, raiding settlements, or serving as elite mercenaries in human armies. Their strength and resilience would be a huge asset in battle. Think about the Roman Empire, for example. We know they conquered many different peoples, assimilated some, brutalized others. If there were Neanderthal populations within or near their borders, how would they be treated? Would they be granted citizenship? Would they be forced to pay tribute? Would they be relegated to the lowest social classes, valued only for their physical strength? You can imagine vast Neanderthal labor forces building roads or working in mines. It's a grim thought, but entirely plausible given human history and language. Our languages would evolve into complex systems, capable of abstract thought, philosophy, law. What about Neanderthal languages? Perhaps they would remain more direct, more focused on the immediate environment, on concrete actions and things. Maybe they'd have a rich tradition of oral history, of songs and stories about hunting and the land, but less focus on written scripts or complex legal codes. This difference in communication could lead to profound misunderstandings, further widening the gap between the two species. Religion would be another huge factor. Every major religion in our world is based on the idea of humanity being a single, unique species, created in a certain way, having a certain relationship with the divine. If there were another intelligent human species, how would that fit? Do Neanderthals have souls? Are they also children of God or gods or the ancestors? Would separate religions develop for them, or would our religions try to incorporate them, perhaps at a lower status? This would cause theological debates that could last for millennia and maybe even spark wars. Art and culture would be so much richer, but also potentially more conflicted. Our art, our stories, they reflect our experience. If there were Neanderthals, our myths would be full of them. Heroes and villains, wise elders, and fierce warriors, their own art would also exist. Perhaps focusing more on cave paintings, carvings, objects of power, things directly connected to hunting and the spiritual world of nature. What would a shared art movement look like? Or would they mostly keep to their own artistic traditions? As the centuries rolled on through the medieval period and into the Renaissance, the differences would become entrenched. Homo sapiens would be innovating, exploring, building ships, gunpowder, printing presses. Neanderthals, if they remained largely hunter-gatherers, would be seen as increasingly backward. Their lands would be coveted. Diseases, too, would play a role. We know diseases from domesticated animals ravaged many isolated human populations. Would Neanderthals be more or less susceptible to our diseases, or vice versa? It's hard to say, but disease could have been a powerful weapon or a devastating equalizer. Then comes the age of exploration. Our ancestors sailed around the world, discovering new continents, new peoples. But in this alternate timeline, they wouldn't be discovering the existence of another human species, because that other species would have been living right next door all along. The whole concept of the other would be different. Instead of just different human cultures, it would be different human species. This would intensify colonialism, racism, and speciesism in ways we can barely imagine. The scientific revolution would be fascinating. Early biologists and anthropologists would be trying to classify both species. They'd be studying their differences, their similarities. There would be debates about intelligence, capabilities, evolutionary origins. And because these other humans would be living, breathing people, the science wouldn't just be about bones. It would be about real interactions, real living societies. This would force a profound reevaluation of what human even means. Think about the Enlightenment, about human rights. Those ideas are based on a universal understanding of humanity. But if there are two species, what rights do Neanderthals have? Are they equal? Are they property? Are they a separate category altogether? The very foundations of our legal and ethical systems would need to be rewritten. The debates about slavery, about the rights of indigenous peoples, would be complicated by the fact that you're dealing with a distinct species. The Industrial Revolution would present a new set of challenges and opportunities. Neanderthals, with their natural strength and endurance, might be highly prized or exploited for industrial labor. Imagine them working in mines, factories, or construction. It could lead to extreme forms of exploitation, with employers arguing that they are better suited for such heavy labor, or that they are somehow less deserving of the same wages or conditions as Homo sapiens workers. But they might also find their own niches, perhaps their sensory abilities, a stronger sense of smell or sight, maybe better night vision. You could make them excellent trackers, guides, or specialized workers in fields where those traits are an advantage. Maybe they would dominate certain sports that require immense strength or cold tolerance. What would it be like to watch a Neanderthal Olympic team, or to have Neanderthal scientists, artists, or philosophers? In the modern world, as we moved into the 20th and 21st centuries, the issues would only become more complex. Globalization, the internet, mass communication, these would connect everyone. But would they connect both species equally? Would there be Neanderthal nations at the UN? Would they have their own languages taught in schools? Would there be ongoing debates about cultural appropriation, about preserving Neanderthal heritage? And what about intermarriage or interspecies relationships? If the genetic mixing continued and became more widespread, the idea of pure Homo sapiens or pure Neanderthal might start to fade in some regions. You'd have a wide spectrum of physical traits and a blending of cultures, but prejudice, sadly, is persistent. Even if the genetic lines blurred, cultural and social differences would likely remain, fostering stereotypes and discrimination. The environmental movement would have an entirely different dimension. Neanderthals, if they maintained a closer connection to nature, might be powerful advocates for conservation, perhaps seeing the destruction of forests and ecosystems in a way that we, with our urbanized lives, struggle to grasp. They might have a deeper innate understanding of ecological balance, or they might simply be viewed as an impediment to progress by those focused on resource extraction. Space exploration would be another wild card. If we were to colonize other planets, would both species go? Would they have different roles? Maybe Neanderthals are better suited for the harsh conditions of certain planets, or for physically demanding tasks in zero gravity. The ultimate question of what it means to be human would become a universal one as we venture out into the cosmos as a multi-species humanity. In this world, the very concept of humanity would be fundamentally different. It wouldn't just be about our species, it would be about two or more distinct but related human species. This would force a constant reevaluation of ourselves. We wouldn't be alone at the top of the evolutionary ladder, the sole intelligent biped on Earth. We'd have a mirror, a counterpoint. We'd see our strengths and weaknesses reflected in another. This would create a world of incredible diversity, but also one with immense potential for conflict and misunderstanding. It wouldn't be a simple, easy coexistence. History shows us that even within a single species, we struggle with tolerance and acceptance. Imagine that struggle amplified by species-level differences. But it would also be a world with a much broader definition of us. A world where the human story isn't just one story, but at least two, intertwined, sometimes harmonious, sometimes clashing, but always together. Ultimately, the survival of Neanderthals wouldn't just add another group of people to the planet. It would fundamentally change the course of every civilization, every philosophy, every war, every peace treaty. It would reshape art, religion, science, and the very meaning of existence for everyone. Our world would be a lot less lonely, but a lot more complicated. And honestly, it's hard to say if we'd be better off or worse. We'd just be undeniably profoundly different.